The easiest way to make a pattern for felting a top or jumper is to use the contours of a ready-made thing. For example, you have some interesting jumper, you like how it fits you. I have a jumper with interesting proportions and I want to make a felted thing of a similar shape. Knitted items with a one-piece sleeve or sleeveless ones are best for this method. This method of enlarging patterns is popular, many of you are probably familiar with it, but I hope someone would find it useful. Draw a straight line perpendicular to the cut of the laminate underlay. This will be the middle line of my template. Fold the jumper in half, combining all the edges, straighten it and put right on the line like this. Now I carefully outline the contours of my jumper. I won't make such collar, I just mark the contours of the neckline. And here approximately I will have the back of the collar. The contours are ready. Now I draw a dot approximately in the middle of this line. I will draw rays from this initial point. You will need a long ruler or you can also use a steel tape measure. Now let's draw rays from this point through all important points on the contour. First let's measure the distance to the contour here. From this point below, the length is 25 centimeters. Now I need to multiply this distance by shrinkage rate. For example, take the shrinkage rate of 1.5. For the Italian bucle tutorial we will use another shrinkage rate. This is an example. So, multiply 25.5 by 1.5 and get approximately 38 centimeters. Mark it on the line. I will draw the next ray through this corner. Again, put your ruler in the center through this point. I get 38 centimeters. Multiply by the shrinkage rate of 1.5 and get 57 centimeters. Continue drawing rays through other points, the sleeves and along the neckline. Now I connect the dots. This is how I got a new enlarged contour. Now I just have to bend along the middle line. You can pin the laminate underlay so that the layers do not move and transfer the resulting lines to the mirror side. Then cut out the template and you are ready to work. To build a template for felting a top or a jumper, we need to take several measurements. You will need an elastic band and a tape measure. To take proper measurements, measure yourself in underwear in front of a mirror. Start with the waistline, mark it with an elastic band. It is not always the thinnest part of the body. To determine it correctly, stand in front of the mirror and bend your arm. Here under the elbow is the waistline. First measure the chest width, around the fullest part of your chest. The tape measure is parallel to the ground. I do not tighten it. My chest width is 92 centimeters. Now let's measure the width of the shoulders. Here you should find a bone, and measure from one bone to the other. Mine is 40 centimeters. Now measure the length of the back. It is measured from your C7 vertebra. To find it, tilt your head forwards. The most protruding is usually C6, C7 is right below it. I put the beginning of the centimeter tape there. Straighten my head and lower this entire tape down to the level of the waistline. Mine is 40 centimeters. Now you should choose the desirable length of the product. It is also measured along the back of from C7 vertebra to the bottom. But measuring it on your own is not very convenient, so I suggest that you measure it from the waistline like this. I want my jumper to end here. This is 12 centimeters from the waistline. I add this measure to the length of the back. Mine was 40 plus 12, so it will be 52 centimeters. I write down the length of the product. Now I need to measure the width of the hips in the place where my sweater will end. Mine is 90 centimeters. Measure the length of the sleeve. I put the beginning of the tape measure here, on the bone. And measure down to the level where you want it to end. If you plan to make long sleeves, longer than the elbow, bend the elbow a little. It's better to do this in front of the mirror and find the level where sleeve should end. Mine is 54 centimeters. If you want to make a short sleeve, measure it like this. I also recommend taking one more measure. It is the girth of the shoulder. I measure my arm at the widest point. I got 27 centimeters. My measurements: chest width, width of the shoulders, length of the back, length of the product, width of the product in the lowest point, length of the sleeve and shoulder girth. Now I need to do some very simple calculations. Divide chest width by 4, get 23. Width of the shoulders is divided by 2, I get 20. Length of the back and of the product stay untouched. Divide width of the product in the lowest point by 4 and get 22.5. The rest stay the same. Now I have to decide how tight or loose I want my top to be. If you want to make it narrower, add 1 centimeter to chest width. This will be enough. If you want to make it a little looser, add 2. If you want to make the thing spacious and comfortable, add 3 or 4. Add 5 centimeters to get an oversized top. I add 2 centimeters. If you want your top to be loose in the hips, add 1 or 2 centimeters. I want my top to get narrower from top to bottom, so I leave this mark as it is. During felting, top will stretch along the bottom line and it will look good. Now my chest width would be 25 centimeters. Now I need to multiply these numbers by my shrinkage rate. My usual shrinkage rate is 2. I will write it down here. If you already have experience with thin layouts, use a shrinkage rate of 2. If you feel that your layout may turn out a little thicker than mine, Then take the shrinkage rate of 1.9 and multiply all these numbers by the shrinkage rate. I get 54 chest width, 44 shoulder width, 84 back length, 104 for product length, 45 for bottom width. Length of the sleeves multiplied by 2 is 20. We are ready with the calculations. Let's create a template. For such templates, I recommend using laminate underlay with 2 or 3 mm thickness. Thinner material for the template will not work. We will wrap the layout on the other side, and if a template is thin, you won't feel its edge. We will need a long ruler, a small triangle ruler, and a small ruler. Having a good permanent marker that does not smudge from water is also important, otherwise you can ruin the product. Now from the edge of the laminate underlay, I measure about half of my future template. To determine the center of the template, add shoulder width measurement to the length of the sleeve. 40 plus 20 is 60 centimeters. From this edge, I measure 60 centimeters and draw a straight line that will be the center of my template. Don't draw directly on the edge, start 2 centimeters to the left. From this point, measure 6 centimeters, it will be C7 vertebra. Now from here I mark the length of the back along this line. We are now working with these increased measurements. The length of the back is 80 centimeters, measure it. Now from the same point down I need measure the length of the product. It is 104 centimeters. But my laminate underlay is not that long, I have to tape a piece to the bottom. Here, lay the edges end to end and connect them with duct tape. Now from this point, I mark it as C7 vertebra point. I measure the length of the product, which is 104 centimeters. Now I draw perpendiculars from these points, so this is the neck, this is the waistline, this is the line of the bottom. My back length is 80 centimeters, I divide it in half, get 40, and I draw a conditional line of the chest. Neck, chest, the waistline, and the bottom. Now mark our first measure, chest width, which is 50 centimeters along this chest line. Mark another measure, bottom width, which is 45 centimeters, along the bottom line. Connect these points with a straight line. I want my top to turn out straight and slightly narrowed down, but if you want it to be a little fitted. Here, in the area of the waistline, we will make a small curve and draw it like this. Don't make it too narrow, 2 or 3 centimeters is enough to indicate waistline. Now draw the neckline. Measure 14 centimeters. For of larger sizes I suggest 15 or 16. Upwards from this point I draw a perpendicular. It is 6 centimeters long. Now I draw the back of the neckline. It goes in a straight line here, then I smoothly round it off. Now let's measure the width of the shoulders, which is 40 centimeters. 2 centimeters down from this point. I draw the line of the shoulder by connecting the dots. Now let's build a sleeve. Extend this shoulder line a little. I want to make a short sleeve. Measure 20 centimeters from this point. Let's lower the sleeve a bit. Down another 2 centimeters and make a small bevel here. Now let's figure out how to make an armhole. I want to make my top with a deep armhole and so that I can wear it on a blouse or on some knitwear on top. So from this line I go 10 centimeters down. Draw a small line at a right angle and connect the lines with a smooth arc. I will erase that extra line so that it doesn't distract us. This top has a short 8 centimeters long sleeve and a small armhole because I wanted to put it on my naked body. This line is more lowered, so the sleeve fits the arm. In that case, I measure 16 centimeters and go down 6 centimeters at a right angle. Here is my sleeve. Draw this part here at a right angle. Draw an armhole curve from the line of the chest. Do it this way if you have thin arms. If your arm is full, make it a bit lower. Draw the curve of the armhole. Here I will round this corner a little bit. When you build a loose top, line a vest with a deep armhole, with more freedom of fitting. Then this line for the front and for the back will be the same. If you make the product more fitting and make a small armhole, then I leave this line for the back of the product. And for the front, I make it more concave in this lower third. I make it 2 centimeters deeper. And here I bring it to the same point. This would be the marking of the front of my sleeve. Let's do the neckline. I have already drawn the neck of the back. To draw the back, I measured 6 centimeters from this point. For the front, I go down 14 centimeters. For larger sizes, measure 15 to 16 centimeters. Draw a tiny perpendicular and draw a beautiful round neckline up to this upper point. When finished, such neckline would be quite close to the neck. Minimum for your head to crawl through it without any additional fasteners. I felt this jumper on a template with such a neckline. See how it turned out here. If you want to make a deeper collar, then measure the distance by which you want to deepen the neck down from this point and mark it on this line. If I want to make a V-shaped collar, ten centimeters long in finished form, I multiply it by my shrinkage rate by 2 and measure 20 centimeters from this point. I also want the neck to be a little more away from the neckline, so I draw a dot here, a couple of centimeters further, and connect these points. The neckline of the back should also start at this point. If you want to do a boat neckline, then you need to decide how much you want it to be away from the neck. Measure this distance and draw it here, along the shoulder line. I measured 10 centimeters for my grey top and connect it to the line of the back. And this would be a front line. If you want to make the boat neck more narrow, draw a line a bit higher. So once again, I will lay out the front along this line and back along the other. My top template is almost ready. On the back, the bottom line will be straight, but for the front I extend it by 3 centimeters. I draw it at a right angle, then draw a smooth arc. I bring it here to the side. I do this so that my top does not pull up in front. For those who have large breasts, add 4 or 5 centimeters to the bottom line and draw a smooth arc. The construction is over, you just have to bend the underlay along this central line. You can even pin it with needles so that nothing moves and transfer all the lines to a mirroring side. Further, I cut out the template, cut it along the side line, along the shoulder line, along the armhole, along the bottom, but leave a margin at the neckline so that it would be more convenient for me to lay out. Draw the lines if they are poorly visible. Template is ready. You can start the layout. Let's create a pattern of a jumper with a sleeve. I will do it on the same piece of laminate underlay. It's a bit dirty, but I try to reuse the patterns to produce less garbage. I left the neckline, the chest line, the waistline, the middle line, the shoulder line, and the classic neckline on the pattern. Here I glued a piece of underlay on which I will make the sleeve pattern. On the chest line I measure the width of the jumper. My top was 50 centimeters wide. I will make the jumper a little wider, 52 centimeters. Also I will make it a little longer than the top. Top was 52, jumper will be 54. Multiplied by the shrinkage rate we get 108 centimeters. Starting point here is the C7 vertebra. I measure 108 centimeters. I draw a line of the bottom. I will make it a little wider at the bottom. Top was 45, jumper will be 50 centimeters. This line will eventually become longer and jumper will be wider to the bottom. Connect the dots. You want to build a shorter sleeve, for example, 20 to 25 centimeters long. You multiply this length by your shrinkage rate and measure it along this line. I want to make a sleeve 40 centimeters long. Also here at a right angle, I make a little bevel, 4 centimeters. Now we'll draw this line in the armpit. If you have a thin arm and want to make a very narrow sleeve, then you can start drawing it right here, near the chest line, but I recommend that you go down a little. Especially if your arms are full, let's go down 10 centimeters. And from this line, from this point, we make a rounding to the sleeve. Now I draw a line here at a right angle. On this line I set the width of my sleeve along the bottom. I know that my shoulder girth is 27 centimeters. Wrote down this measure for myself. I want it to be a little wider and add 4 centimeters. I get 31 centimeter. This is the width of the sleeve at the bottom, here at right angle. Connect the armpit dots by drawing a beautiful curve. If I want to make a jumper with a long sleeve, for example the full length is 56 centimeters, I multiply by my shrinkage rate and it will be 112 centimeters. But I will make the pattern a little shorter because when we felt products with a long sleeve, it always tends to stretch a little. It shrinks less in length and shrinks more in width, so I always shorten the sleeve pattern a little and slightly expand it in width, so here I will measure 102 centimeters. On this straight line, I want to make such a rather loose sleeve, so I'm drawing it along this straight line from the shoulder point. Here draw a perpendicular line. Now I'll think about the width of the sleeve. For example, I want my sleeve girth to be 36 centimeters. That is, the half girth is 18, multiply by my shrinkage rate and get 36 centimeters, but here I will add a little more as it will shrink more. Add 4 more centimeters, so I measure 40 centimeters, do it here at a right angle. Now I decide the width of the sleeve at the bottom, it will be a bit narrower, 36 centimeters. Connect these points. You see, for a narrower sleeve, I made a deep armhole. I lowered it from the chest line by 10 centimeters. For a wider sleeve, we want a deeper one. Here I'll go 14 centimeters down from the chest line and make a nice rounding. If you make the sleeve wide at the bottom, then maybe here you need a correction. We need a right angle. I extend this bottom line of the sleeve. Here at right angle I draw such a line, this will be the bottom line of my sleeve. I made a pattern of a jumper with a fairly wide sleeve with considerable freedom in the armhole. If you want to make a jumper with a narrow sleeve, like this one, here you raise this line, and here, too, to make a narrow sleeve. To achieve a better fit, here, under the sleeve, and get rid of extra folds. I changed the pattern and used a special technique of laying out and felting, but we will talk about this later, when felting the jumper. I also have to change the collar a little. I want to make a jumper with an extended neckline. Here, from the point of the base neck along the shoulder, I measure 8 centimeters and draw a new neckline for the front and back. Further, I want to make a jumper with a soft stand-up collar. But we will also talk about that when laying out the jumper. Don't forget to slightly lengthen my sweater in front for better balance, at 3 centimeters from the bottom line in front. If you have a large breast, at 4 or 5. Connect the lines like this with a curve. Our pattern is ready, just bend it in the middle, transfer all the lines to the mirroring side and cut it out.